Look at your dashboards for the next week. For every metric you are tracking, maybe you should ask yourself, does this tell me if my customers are succeeding or just if they're busy? And that's exactly the difference between vanity and value. Hello and welcome back to StartCS. I'm Delia, and in today's episode, we are diving into a topic that every business leader, manager, and customer success professional eventually struggles with: how to measure customer success without getting lost in vanity metrics. You know, those shiny numbers that look pretty good on a slide deck, but don't actually tell you if your customers are happy or getting value for real from your collaboration. Now, here's the thing. Customer success doesn't look the same for everyone. What matters in a SaaS business is not at all what matters in e-commerce or HoReCa. So today we are going to break it down by industry, and I will walk you through why vanity metrics are really dangerous, what makes a KPI relevant for your business, and then we will look at some examples from SaaS, e-commerce, and HoReCa. Alright, so let's start with the vanity metrics. I would like to think of vanity metrics as Instagram filters for any business. They make things look prettier than they really are. So in SaaS, for example, you might look at the dashboard with 10,000 logins for a month, which sounds pretty cool, right? But what if those people just logged in, got confused, got frustrated, and then left? Does that really count as success? I guess not. In e-commerce, for example, you could be celebrating traffic spikes. 1 million visitors sounds amazing. But what if nobody actually buys? Does that still really matter? And in restaurants, a manager might be super happy for having 30 reservations on a Saturday evening. But what if those guests never come back or leave negative reviews? Is that still success? I don't think so. So, how do we avoid this confusion? First of all, let's define what a good KPI is. What are those qualities of a good KPI? First, it's actionable. If the number changes, you know that you have to change something. Then, it's predictive. It doesn't just tell you what already happened, it also tells you what's coming. Then, it's aligned with customer value, and this is a really important one. If a metric does not connect directly to whether customers are actually succeeding, why are you tracking it? Doesn't make any sense. And last but not least, it's simple and easy to explain. If you need 3 PowerPoint slides to explain a metric, it's probably not helping. So let's break it down by industry. And let's take the first one in SaaS, right? Where it's all about adoption and retention. So the first KPI I would suggest here is the adoption rate. So try to track not only the logins, but whether the customers are using the features that are directly impacting their goals. The second one would be time to value. How long does it take for one customer of yours to hit their first aha moment and draw value from using your product? The third KPI I would suggest here is the net revenue retention. Check if your customers are renewing, expanding, or on the contrary, shrinking. And last but not least, a customer health score that blends usage, support, and sentiment. And the short story here, I used to work in a company who was building a project management tool. And we were super happy about having daily active users. At the same time, the churn rate was pretty high. Why do you think that was happening? Well, actually, what happened was people logged in, but they didn't actually complete projects. So when we realized this root cause, we switched the KPI to time to first project completed. And with just this change, one only change, which was actually focusing on value and not just activity, the churn rate dropped, and we could also identify a lot of upsells opportunities. Let's take now e-commerce, where it's all about turning people who maybe browse out of curiosity into loyal buyers. So the main KPI here would be the conversion rate. The second I would suggest would be the customer lifetime value, which is the total net profit that you, as a business, can expect to earn from one single customer over the entire duration of your collaboration. The third one I would suggest here would be the average order value, the average amount of money a customer spends per transaction. And last but not least, I would suggest the cart abandonment rate, which is actually pretty important because it tells you if your checkout process is pretty smooth or needs any improvement. And the short example here with a fashion retailer who actually doubled website traffic thanks to big flashy campaigns. The problem was that they had flat sales because they had 60% of carts abandoned, because their checkout flow was not at all user-friendly. So after identifying the root cause and fixing the checkout flow, conversions jumped with 50% overnight. So the lesson here is that tracking the traffic was actually the vanity metric, while the real KPI here was conversion. In HoReCa, it's all about experience and loyalty. So as KPI, I would strongly suggest the average spend per guest or the average order value, the repeat visit rate, the online review scores, and directly related to this one, the customer satisfaction rate or score. Let's take an example of a really trendy restaurant in Budapest that was full every single night, and it looked like pretty successful. But if you looked at the Google reviews, the scores were pretty low because people complained about slow service and average quality food. So repeated visits were almost non-existent. At some point, the restaurant manager started tracking loyalty, not just reservations. And that's exactly when the truth hit. What they did was to retrain the staff, refresh the menu, optimize their internal processes, and in a couple of months, a lot of things changed. They had repeated visits and the reviews got pretty cool. So here, as a conclusion, tables being full was vanity, while the real KPI was customer loyalty. So indeed, we see that nowadays there's a lot of pressure to track a lot of KPIs. And here's also the FOMO rising, it seems. But what exactly should we do, right? So what I would suggest first is not to track everything. Pick 2, 3, 5 KPIs that are most relevant for your customers and at the same time for you as well, so that you know what you have to improve. Secondly, review those KPIs periodically because your priorities change as you grow as a business and as well as your customers grow. Third, make sure that you tie everything back to customers' outcomes. Are people more productive because of your collaboration or due to your collaboration? And last but not least, a very, very important one, share ownership. And think about customer success not like it's one team's job, right? In SaaS, for example, it's product and support and marketing and sales all pulling together. In e-commerce, it's a team sport as well. Marketing brings customer in. The website and product team, they design a smooth shopping experience for the customers. Customer service handles post-purchase issues. And logistics make sure that deliveries are fast and reliable. In HoReCa, for example, it's chefs and waiters and managers. If even one of those parts break, the whole customer journey breaks. So everybody plays their part. Now, in conclusion, vanity metrics make dashboards look pretty, but they don't tell you exactly if your customers are thriving. So here's your challenge. Look at your dashboards for the next week. For every metric you are tracking, maybe you should ask yourself, does this tell me if my customers are succeeding or just if they're busy? And that's exactly the difference between vanity and value. Thank you for listening to episode 6 of Start CS. Maybe you can share it with someone who could use it, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next ones. Until then, keep learning, keep experimenting, measure what matters, and most importantly, keep your customers successful, because this is exactly what makes you successful too.